Welcome back to another edition of Talking Ball. It's Jack here. We've got Josh with us today, and we are looking at the Celtics. We're looking at the Celtics. We've got our Tatum jerseys on, and we're going to be previewing the 2024-25 season for the Boston Celtics. They went 61-21 last year, which was 3 wins worse. Good for second in the East behind the Cavs. They won their first round series against the Magic in 5 games. And then they lost in surprising fashion to the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference semifinals in 6 games. But obviously the most important part of that, and which will have a great impact on today's video, was Jason Tatum's Achilles tear, and he'll be out for this entire season. So this is going to be a gap year for the Celtics. Josh, the offseason, there was a lot of moves. What move stuck out to you the most?
Yeah, I think the Porzingis trade, I mean, that's up there with probably the Drew Holiday trade. Everyone, as soon as Tatum got injured, everyone's like, "Oh, the Celtics are really old and they are in the luxury tax." And they made really smart moves to get rid of both of those contracts, who a lot of people thought would be really, really hard to do in our current cap situation. So I think those two are probably the best moves that they could have made, and I'd probably put them up there.
I was looking back at it, and I hope I have this correctly, but if I don't, I definitely get things wrong. But I think Brad Stevens was able to get draft picks in both Porzingis trades, which I was like, man, that seems hard to do. But I think he was able to, and then they end up flipping George Niang for, and they had to attach a couple second rounders to him to get R.J. Lewis Jr., the undrafted wing. Um, those are. I mean, that's obviously where we got to start. They saved, I think it was like over $250 million, almost 300 million. There's in my notes here in tax payments, and I think, and we'll talk about this later. They're about $12 million above the luxury tax right now, or into the luxury tax. Like, I think there's a good chance that they get their way down below it before the end of this season, so they can get out of the repeater situation and get a clean reset there.
Yeah, and I think maybe we'll talk about that later, but one possible move is the acquisition, coming from the fact that they traded Holiday for Simons and potentially trading Simons again. I
Right.
know he's earning what is it, around 30 million, maybe a little bit more.
I think a little bit less.
Oh, a little bit less, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be a good way to get out of his contract, especially, with no Tatum, and we'll talk about their front court, not a lot of depth or even starting players, honestly. Don't even get
Yeah.
past the depth. Their situation coming around the midway season, they may be a seller, and depending on how Simons is doing, I'm sure he'll have the green light. Uh, you know, some people may want him.
Yeah. It's a very good point. It's something I've been thinking about this entire offseason and where he could end up, because I agree with you. I don't think he is going to stay in Boston. Um, but quickly going through some of the other offseason moves, and pick out any of these you want, Josh. Luke Cornett left the team. That's a big loss. When you're
Oh
talking about
yeah,
the front court, for sure, he was real reliable for them. And then their other center, technically could come back in Al Horford, because he's still not signed with the Warriors. But I think we all know we're waiting on Jonathan Kaminga to re-sign there, most likely at this point. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able
yeah,
to work something out, and then Horford will sign. And then in the draft, they got Hugo Gonzalez, who is a guy who I think was projected to go a little bit earlier, and then he didn't play very much last season for Real Madrid or Barcelona. I forget which one of the two. They signed a couple of bench players from the Timberwolves in Josh Minott and the great Luca Garza. And and most importantly, they brought in Chris Boucher on a minimum contract. So what of those moves, Josh, stuck out to you the most?
yeah. I think it's very telling that after they lost Luke Cornett, they really needed to figure out their front court situation. So I think they're just throwing darts, honestly, just trying to sign a bunch of players for cheap. And honestly, I don't think you mentioned their second round pick, Amari Williams. He's may play some center as well. So I think if I had to pick one, Garza, I think would be the starting center day one, right? I think Boucher would probably slide at either the four or backup four. I think probably Hauser starts at the four, because he's obviously been with the team. So maybe Garza. I mean,
Yeah, so you're right. I didn't mention Amari Williams. They got him in the second round, signed a two-way deal. Good passing big, but also can be turnover prone when he's pressured, and not much of a shooter. Good defender though. Good defender. I think he'll be in the rotation. I think though. I think Luca Garza is going to be the backup big. I think Nemias Keita is going to start at center.
oh yeah, I was gonna say I forgot about Keita. Yeah, he'll probably start at center. Yeah,
Yeah, I think especially once you said Hauser, I think it makes sense. Hauser gives you the spacing. Cato will give you the rim protection. They've kind of been developing him the past couple of seasons now, so I
fan
think
favorite.
he'll yeah I think he'll be ready to go. I think I like Cato's game, and to me this is a topic we can touch on maybe later. We'll touch on it later. It's like what guys emerge this year that can be part of a contender when Tatum comes back. Because I think that's all this year's about. Like, can they find two or three rotation guys on the cheap who can be a part of next year's team? Because it's not about this year. If you thought the Celtics were going to go anywhere this year, you may as well click off this video. That's not what we're going to be talking about. Very lead right there. Um, so, and speaking of that, I don't think Vegas is very high on the Celtics. Their win total prediction, Josh. We did this video. We did the Eastern Conference. Make sure to watch that about a month ago now. The current win total prediction for the Celtics, when I looked at this, I guess it was 4 or 5 days ago, was 42.5. Which, when we did our first video, was 43.5. And the odds are favored. How do you say this correctly? Like the under, there's more juice on the under right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there's clearly Vegas is clearly thinking. Which, by the way, if they were to go under, just to go under, let's say they finish at 42 wins, it would be 19 wins worse than the year prior, which would be a pretty dramatic
That's
drop down.
crazy.
And
Yeah.
I think it could be worse, but that also depends on the rest of the East, which isn't going to be good. Um, and how long the Celtics, want to play this game, because I think there's a real possibility for them to get a good draft pick this year. I think it's going to be a deep draft, and I think they could get a decent pick in the first round.
Yeah, so I think obviously they're looking for role players to answer your question about, with all the recent acquisitions and probably Keita is one of the up there with one of the most promising because, he was with the team the last couple of years and looked pretty good in limited minutes. And he definitely has like a defined role as a rim protector. So you know what you're getting. But honestly, if you were to ask me who would be like the best prospects for when Tatum comes back, I think it would be their draft pick because when we both did the podcast, we were both under on them. I was way under, and I get the East argument, but if you're given a chance to get a good pick, especially after seeing what happened with the Dallas Mavericks, I don't see any reason why they're like Tatum is not going to play this year. I know there are people who always bring up reports of, oh, Tatum may be back for in time for the playoffs, but that's just a bad. That's just re-injuring the Achilles waiting to happen. Like there's no reason to rush him back. So I would not push for playoff aspirations, especially with this generation, this draft class coming up and how good it is. And I think whoever they get, especially if they slip some money to Adam Silver like Dallas Mavericks did, um, would be a great piece for them. Because you always want to consider what's the key to success in the modern NBA. It's, well, you have your two superstars who are taking up a majority of the money, and then you have some good role players with contracts. But what's most important is a rookie contract, a great player on a rookie contract. You saw that with OKC last year. Um, and so you really need that piece, especially in the modern NBA and with the cap situation. So yeah, that's how I feel about them and their potential draft pick.
Yeah, yeah, Hugo. I was just looking it up as you were talking there. I want to make sure I had it correct. So it was Real Madrid, not Barcelona. It was one of the
Yeah.
two. But he was a guy who, like around this time last year, was projected as like a late lottery kind of guy, and he just didn't play very much for them. So there's a chance they got a real steal in Hugo Gonzalez. And to your point, like I would, it's him or Keita to me. Maybe you mix in like a Baylor Shireman, but the thing with Shireman is like maybe he could be the Hauser replacement. A little bit of a different player, but Hauser makes around 12 million. We'll talk about that luxury tax situation a little bit later. But to your point, it's all about finding value. That's the NBA right now. Value with contracts. So those are the three guys I'm looking at. Like Jordan Walsh, I did not love what I saw from him in the summer league. Um, I know he's a guy who they've had around as a potential piece, and maybe he does. Over the course of 80 games, he actually gets consistent playing time, which is a big component in development, and that could help him. But I just wouldn't be betting on it. One guy who's interesting to me, never watched him play, but I was looking at their roster. Hayden Gray, who is a guy they brought in as a rookie from San Diego, and he's a 6'4" guard, but he shot 42% from three on 5 attempts and averaged 3 steals a game. So I was like, I've never seen this guy play in my life, but the stats say he could be, he could fit into their mold of a good defensive guard who can also knock down the three on pretty good volume. Because 5 attempts from three per game in college with less time is a pretty high volume number. So I think he's a guy to keep an eye on as well in terms of these potential development pieces for next year.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the only thing is it's really tough for these guards to develop and get playing time when three of their maybe top five players are guards. And last year, Peyton Pritchard, reigning sixth man of the year, he got 28 minutes per game, and you're only going to expect them to get more than that, especially with their lack of talent. So between Simons, White, and Pritchard, I mean, those are pretty much your guard rotation. And Jalen Brown, he's going to play probably 36 minutes per game. Like he's a workhorse. He'll play a lot. So I think those guys are probably the more talented or higher ceiling, but it's just tough because there's not a lot of minutes there unless maybe, as you mentioned, they do trade Simons and that happens on the back half of the season. But until then,
I think that's a great point. I think if like a guy like Hayden Gray were to get an opportunity, it would be what you're talking about. Like post All Star break, they've traded Simons. Maybe there was an injury earlier in the season. You saw some flashes from him, and then he gets a bigger opportunity 25, 20 minutes a game, whatever it might be. And you get a chance to get a look at him in real NBA games. And, do you want to keep this guy on the roster? I think that's going to be certainly what the second half of the season is going to be about for the Celtics, and maybe earlier than that. But maybe they'll surprise us. We could be wrong.
yeah, could be wrong.
Maybe But to your point, they are. Let's talk about what you brought up earlier because you're kind of alluding to it indirectly there with this depth chart. You've got Pritchard, you've got White, you've got Simons, and you've got Jalen Brown. Well, after that, in terms of like NBA proven talent, unless I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser's proven.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of guys on this roster who you look at and you're like, I guess I'll throw one more. Chris Boucher. I know what I'm gonna get from these guys.
Yeah,
I know what I'm
that's
gonna
true.
get. And I think ultimately, that's why we both are looking at this team like this is not a playoff team. And when you look at the depth, particularly in the 4 and 5 spots, like, is it? Let's just talk about. Let's separate the 4 and the 5. The 5 spot for the Celtics. would you say it's in the bottom five of the Eastern Conference? We'll just start there.
Wow. I mean,
I know there's
is
one
it
team off the top of my head I definitely put below them, and
who's
actually,
that? Start there.
even as I was saying, I was like maybe I wouldn't, but I would. The team that's certainly close, the Hornets. They're comparable, but
Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think Diabate he showed some stuff as a rebounder, but I think Keita's shown some stuff as a rim protector as well. So they're kind of similar.
I mean, Diabate has played like he was playing like 30 minutes per game. He started. So I don't know. I honestly think it's the worst. I mean,
Yeah, the Nets.
Keita Keita only played
The
14
Nets.
minutes per game and before it's only 11. So I mean, you're getting like super limited minutes. I think a lot of the Boston fans, I think a lot of them are really like Keita because I think they see flashes of Robert Williams, who they're sad about, had left the team. So I think that's why they're really high on him, and similar ability to run rim rolling man, really good at defending the rim. But we just haven't seen it. Very
Yeah,
limited minutes.
yeah, yeah. It's a rough spot, and I guess a fun follow up question on that is who led the Celtics in total blocks last year?
Oh, I think it's Derek White.
It is Derek White. Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
I saw a video of someone doing something similar, and it's Derek White. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was kind of close, but it was clear. And I was looking like I know he's a great guard shot blocker, but I was like, maybe Tatum or Cornette, would have surpassed them, but
yeah,
no. I think Keita, if he gets the minutes, I think he will, which will be 20 plus. Like I think he should lead them in blocks
I agree. Yeah,
this year. But to your point, the fact that he hasn't had like extended run in years prior says to me that Coach Missoula may not have he certainly doesn't have full confidence in him, um, because like for as good as Al Horford has been, they didn't want to play Al Horford a lot of times as many minutes as they did. So I think that says something about Keita. Um,
I think adding on to that, in
yeah,
his limited minutes, like averaging around a little over 10 minutes, he's getting close to two fouls in those 10 minutes. So if you scale that up, I mean, very easily, he's probably, foul prone. So they definitely need to work something out with those centers. And that's why I think I was kind of alluding to Amari Williams. I'm sure he'll get some minutes. I mean, Garza, Boucher, they'll all do a rotation between the four and the five. But again, we just really have to see it.
yeah. Unfortunately, Mark Williams had a similar problem in college. Not the worst, but he was certainly a bit foul prone. And I think actually Luca Garza can be foul prone too because he's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the fleetest of foot. But thankfully, that's part of the beauty. You've got three of these guys. You just use up
Yeah.
their fouls. The other teams will be in the bonus, probably more than you like, but that's they're all going to get chances. Is my feeling on this team, and hopefully, if you're a Celtics fan, one of these guys emerges and you feel like they could be part of the center rotation, or best case scenario, this is our starting center next year.
Yeah.
Um, we'll have to see. I think the most interesting thing for me with them is the luxury tax because clearly with them saving 300 million in tax payments this offseason, that is a major focus for them.
Yeah.
So they're 12 million above the tax. There's a couple ways they could get there. You talked about it. I alluded to it earlier with like Anthony Simons being traded because I was just double checking. He's right around $25 million this season. Hauser is just under 12 himself. So I think they're not trading White. They're not trading Brown. They're not trading Tatum. Those are your guys who make above that. Payne Pritchard is going to make 7.5 million. Simons might be a little bit higher than 25 in fairness because that's his average value. But you're not trading Pritchard. He's on a really good contract. So I think it's Hauser or Simons. But one of those two guys is going to go before the deadline. Which player do you think Brad Stevens is leaning more to, you think?
Yeah, it's tough because one thing I don't think mentioned yet is Simons is technically on the last year of a deal. So, you could maybe trade him before the trade deadline. Um, and I don't know what the team wants to do. I guess it depends on how he's performing, really. I mean, worst case scenario, they just let him walk at the very end of the season, not re-signing him. So I think it would still probably be Simons, given all that. I think Hauser, he's been with the team and he fits the Celtics identity of just shooting a lot of threes. I know there's questions about whether he's actually starting material. I guess we'll know next season, but I feel like Simons has way more value and it's probably easier to trade, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's right. Simons, 27.6 is his cap number right now, and Hauser's at 10. And then also with Simons, if they can coordinate like a three-team trade, maybe there's a player they could take back, kind of similar to what they did with Niang, with the Hawks and Nets, where they send out Porzingis, where he was around, I don't know, 30 million give or take, and then they bring back Niang, who's around 8 to 10. So maybe they do something similar where they send out Simons. There's a third team. Maybe it's the Nets. Maybe it's the Wizards, and they get back somebody around 10 million in salary. Now the tricky part is they probably don't want to bring back somebody unless it's somebody that they view as a longer term piece who's gonna have a contract that goes beyond this year. So a lot, to your point, is going to depend on, is Simons playing well enough that he's viewed as an asset, or is he just viewed as a contract that needs to be moved and the Celtics need to attach picks? And
Hmm.
based off of the Drew Holiday trade, I think the league consensus is there's not a ton of value, and just in this, like, his prototype, his build, like Norm Powell's coming off. They're slightly different players, but kind of similar positionally. Norm Powell's coming off like the best year of his career, one of the best years, and he got traded for Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a second round pick, basically. So there's
Yeah.
just not a lot of value around the league for like scoring guards.
Especially undersized them. And they're really like
Yeah.
not a true one, more of a two.
And you combine that with the Magic getting Bane and Tyus Jones, and that seemed like a likely destination for him. Like, it's hard when you look around the league to find good landing spots for Simons right now.
Yeah, and another team other than the Magic that was mentioned is the Spurs, but they also signed another guard, so very unlikely that he goes there either.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a team with too many guards.
Yeah. The opposite problem though, a lot of them can shoot.
That's true. That is true. Maybe they get to a point mid-year. They're like, we've got a good team, but none of our guards can shoot. We got to get a guard who can shoot, and we've got the guy in the middle who can make up for some of his defensive weaknesses. So, yeah, you kind of talked me into that being a possibility, although I don't think it's a likely one.
No, no, who would they trade? Their guards are too good for Simons. And it's like Castle and like what, Vassell? Obviously not Harper.
No, but I wouldn't trade
Those are
Castle.
the
I would not trade
no,
Castle.
they would not. They definitely wouldn't.
It would have to. I mean, maybe may I was gonna say maybe Vassell, but he's more off the ball guy.
And
I don't
isn't he
know.
earning a decent amount too?
He is. He is. He would be on the books for a bit too, and his defense
Yeah.
hasn't been as good as what I thought it would be from the
Yeah,
numbers.
if I'm San Antonio, I wouldn't want it. Simons.
Yeah. So Simons, we think is gonna go. We've talked about players that can emerge. We've talked about um, we talked about the different like luxury tax options. Um, the one thing I'm curious about, like, what do you think, Josh? Can Tatum comes back? He's healthy. Let's say 2026, 27. Like, are these guys are now? This is a lot to look out a year from now. But would you say the Celtics are like they're right back to being the favorite, at least in the East? Or obviously a lot depends on what happens with the Cavs, Knicks, Magic,
Magic.
Pistons to a lesser extent, Hawks you could throw in there. But like you got Tatum, you got Brown, you got White. Like how important do you think is it this season that they find a couple of guys, and do you think they could be right back into the title picture?
Well, depending on if they are able to really get under that luxury tax, I think there's room for them to sign maybe those players on a good deal that you're talking about in that off season. So I don't think they would sign anyone now. I think it wouldn't be until the next off season. Anyone now or during the season. I think it would come afterwards, especially given that they like if they do tank, they could see what their draft is looking like their draft pick and who they get, and maybe decide from there, like, oh, we have a really promising rookie who could start in this position, you know. So I don't think it'd be anyone now. But I think if you're asking me if they are only a couple moves from contending next year, I think they definitely are, especially in the East.
Yeah, I think they're gonna be right back. I think they're gonna be right back. But if I were a Celtics fan, I would just not watch this year. I would just not watch.
No, no.
Yeah, this reminds me so much of the Warriors gap year.
Oh yeah,
Although for them, I think it ended up being gap years because I think it was Clay's first injury, and then Clay had another injury, and then if I remember correctly, then they won. So it was like 2 years in between. Um,
yeah.
or technically 3 years because they lost in the finals. Didn't make. They lost in like the play and didn't make the
Oh
playoffs,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then they won. So that's. But I think the Celtics, assuming Tatum doesn't get hurt again, would be back in a year, and then it's so it'd be 2 years without them winning. I think they could. A healthy Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White. They just gotta find those other pieces because there's a clear difference in that team pre Porzingis and Holiday and post Porzingis and especially Holiday. They gotta get another good defensive minded guard. I just think that's
Yeah.
really important, and they gotta find bigs. So I think that'll be good for them to try out these different bigs this year. Um, but if you were to ask me as a betting person, are any of these bigs, going to be the starter for the Celtics next year? My answer would be no.
Yeah. Unless Kata really performs, but even then.
Yeah, that I had to catch myself. I was gonna almost say, are any of these guys gonna be on the roster? And I was gonna say no, but I was like, I feel like Kata could be the backup center for next year's
Yeah,
team.
yeah,
I could see
yeah.
him like filling that role, but I don't think he's gonna end up being the out and out starter. But again, could be wrong. I think it would be an awesome thing if he does emerge. Um, so I remember watching him at Utah State. Shout out Utah State. I don't know what their team name is, but he was a
You
good
haven't
player.
watched that.
Yeah. Oh, the Aggies. The Aggies. There
Oh,
you
the
go.
Aggies.
Home of
My,
Sam Merrill.
oh, your boy.
Shout out Sam
My
Merrill.
question is Peyton Pritchard a lock for sixth man of the year? I wonder what his odds are.
The reason I would say no is because I think they're trading Simons, and once that happens, I think he's
He's
gonna.
disqualified.
Yeah, I think he's gonna start too much. That's what. I just think he's gonna have an awesome year. I don't know. Like I bet they'll keep him in the 6 man role, but I think he bumps up to like 18 points a game. Like I think he's gonna have a really good year. Um.
Yeah.
All right. Let me ask you this. Do you think, unless you had something you want to follow up on there?
I don't know.
All right. All right. Between Derek White and Jaylen Brown, who do you think's points increase over last year's points the most?
Oh man. So For reference, Derek White scored 16.4 points per game. And Jalen Brown. Do you want to guess Jalen Brown? How many points he scored last game? Because
Last
this makes my
season,
answer very easy.
I think he was at 24.
22. So my
Oh
answer is
man.
Jalen Brown.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That seems pretty easy. That seems pretty
I
easy
had to do a
there.
little check. I think it's because Tatum scored so much. I think Tatum scored almost close to 30, like 28 or something.
Yeah. Yeah. He was back up there because I think the year prior he had come down Tatum, but
Yeah.
with Porzingis missing a good chunk, he was around 27 last year. But
Yeah.
yeah, you take out
So definitely Jalen Brown.
Tatum. I mean, Porzingis didn't play a ton of games, but when he did play, that affected Brown's number of attempts. I don't think Derek White's gonna go from 19 to 24 or something. Like maybe he gets 20, but I don't.
He averaged 16 last year.
Oh, he's at 16.
Yeah.
Maybe he gets to 19 or 18, but I don't think he's getting much more than that.
Yeah, and I think
So
Jalen Brown's going to be 28, close to 30, honestly.
yeah, he's gonna go get his. I think it's gonna be like Bradley Beal on the Wizards a couple years ago, but he's
Yeah.
got he's got a little bit more help. He's got a little bit more help around him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some real players. Any
I
other?
think,
Go
well,
ahead.
if we talk about Peyton Pritchard, I think Peyton Pritchard has, especially if Simons gets traded, Peyton Pritchard has a good chance to get his assist numbers up. He had 3.5 last year, but I know with larger minutes, especially like games he did start, I know those numbers were higher, so I could definitely see him. And they don't really have like a primary ball handler. A lot of the times it's Tatum or Brown. So I think he could definitely get his assist numbers up.
Yeah, he's a guy who averaged a fair number of assists in college when he was able to run the offense. And if what we think is going to happen happens, which, well, let's just lay it out. Simons gets traded, and then, well, we haven't talked about this, but at least I think we're going to have a Derek White uh, hamstring by January. He's going to be, yeah,
Hamstring.
he'll be done for the year. Let's say an ankle injury for Jalen Brown. He'll be done. Right. So then, they're still gonna, they still gonna want
Peyton
Peyton
Pritchard's going
Pritchard.
to average like 25,
Yeah,
6 rebounds, and 10 assists.
yeah. The last couple months of the season, I think he's gonna go absolutely crazy. And he,
He was honestly like, if you had a chance to bet him when he was confirmed starting, he was close to triple double watch. I think he had, did he have a triple double last year? Well, let me look this up.
yeah. As you're looking that up, um, the last thing I want to say, I don't know if you got any other topics we didn't hit on, but the NBA made official that the end of quarter heaves won't count against people's
Uh,
field goal percentages, and
oh, he's checking them.
the only guy who did not care about that was Peyton Pritchard because he was like, "I make mine anyways. Like they're going in. You don't need to do that rule for me."
Yeah. All right,
Him,
he didn't have a triple double last year, but in 2023 against the Hawks, in 46 minutes, he had 30 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists.
he played 46 minutes.
That was at the end of the season, so
Okay,
it's when no one else is playing.
I was like, that reminded me. I was watching some video. I think it was of Aaron Harrison. You remember the Harrison twins?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He was talking about one of his last games in the NBA. It was the last game of the season, and they just put him out there because they're whatever, and they just had him play the entire game. He just played all 48 minutes, and they didn't take him off. And I think that was his last game in the NBA. Goodbye.
That was like PJ Tucker during our New York Knicks talk.
Yeah, PJ played like 36 minutes the last game of the season. I was like, what is going on? Let some of the young guys play. He can't move. He literally can't move. He's like tack hugging
They're trying to
guys.
hurt him out there.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on? All right. Any other topics, Josh, before we sign off?
All right, I'll ask you this.
Okay.
Between Simons and White and Peyton Pritchard, who makes the most threes per game? So Derek White last year, he made
Oh,
3.5 threes.
I was good.
Simon
Okay,
made,
go ahead.
you're just gonna guess? You don't need numbers?
No, tell me the numbers, but I already know who I'm picking. It doesn't matter what you say.
Simons was 3.1 and Peyton Pritchard was 3.2.
That's actually way closer than I thought it was gonna be. Um, I'm gonna change my answer. Initially, I was gonna say Derek White. Didn't matter what you're gonna say, but I feel like Derek White got some of his shots because of the gravity of Tatum and Brown. Like you had to worry about them a little bit more, and combine that with, I think Payton Pritchard's gonna go absolutely crazy in the second half of this season. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
PP. I think he's gonna be up closer to 4 by the end of the
Not to
year.
disagree with you, but watching a lot of the Celtics games, I Derek White would just it wasn't a
He was
pull. He
just
would just chuck some of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did just chuck some. You're right. You're right.
But yeah, it does help.
I just think like he goes up from third or fourth if Porzingis was playing, which wasn't very often on the scouting
Yeah.
report. To he's clearly the second guy.
Yeah, that's true.
So I just, but to your point, like the it was like game 5 against the Knicks at home. He was just firing. It didn't
Yeah,
matter. But then
didn't
game
matter.
6, there was a little bit more focus on him. He didn't shoot. He didn't shoot well at
Yeah.
all. So I was like, probably the truth was somewhere in between of him going absolutely crazy and him being terrible, somewhere in the middle.
It's crazy because his last 3 years, he's been really close to 40% every year. He's very consistent.
Yeah.
But that being said, same with Payne Pritchard. Oh my God, 40% first 2 years and then 40% again last year.
What about Simons?
Shooters. Simons, he's up there. Last 5 years, 42, 40, 37, 38, 36. So kind of gone down, but I'm sure that's because he's more of a focus on defense, so he takes tougher shots. Maybe he'll get back up there.
That is a very good point. He was like the only reliable shooter, the only guy at least who gave you fear as a shooter on the Trailblazers
Yeah.
the past couple of seasons, certainly last season. So being in an environment with White and Pritchard, and then that should help. That should help. Where there's a little bit teams a little more spacing, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, all
I'm
right.
not gonna lie, in the beginning of the season, we are gonna bet Celtics games over. These guys, they're gonna be off variance, they're gonna be pouring in threes and not playing any defense. So it's gonna be these games are gonna be high scoring. I wonder what they'll come out of, but I'm letting you know. That's how we start.
I'm adding it to our notes right now. Celtics in season overs.
Oh yeah.
And with that, I think it's a good time to wrap it up. We'll see you guys for the next preview, which will be on a team to be announced. We have not decided yet. And until then, peace.